I make mistakes all the time. So I apologize in advance. So with no further ado, we get into some introductions, since that's one of the big things here, is just to know who our fellow BFP folks here are. So if folks could be brief, that would be awesome. If you could describe some items, could be your region you're calling from, you know, or your roots, whatever you identify with, and if your relationship to the military, if any, and sorry, why you're here, your interest in VFP. Okay, so I guess I'll start by use as a demonstration. So I am in Moanalua in West Honolulu, my home now. I've lived other places, quite an international person, but Hawaii has been my home now for well over 20, almost 25 years now. And I mentioned I was in the Army, 1986, 89. I was a combat medic. Though, of course, the recruiter told me I'd be working in a nice hospital. That's not what happened. I got sent to the armor unit. And my interest in VFP is, I was raised, my father's still alive. He's going to be 95 next month. He was in the Marines, 27 years. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and a bunch of conflicts in between. I grew up hearing about the inevitability and the human nature of war. And I grew up in that, thinking it, and I enlisted myself. Granted, I was misled by recruiters in high school. But really what got me going was this question that my father put out to me. He would say, war is how it is. It's always will be, it always will be. And I just wondered, well, if that's true, then I need to pony up the war, or I need to find out the truth. And so when I got out of the military, very disciplined, and started using my GI Bill, that was my thesis question for my senior thesis. Are humans inevitably violent? Is war part of our nature? And very long, very short, my research concluded that no, it's not a part of any human nature necessarily. And so coming to that clarity, you know, I've been a veteran working for peace ever since, coming from a deeply military background, if you will. So with that, maybe what we could do is, after your brief introduction, if you could pick the next person to speak. Is that okay? Or maybe that's not okay, because not everybody's looking at a name. So if you could call the next person, but I'm just gonna go kind of in the order that I'm seeing the rows on my screen. Maybe they're different from others, but I'm just gonna start with Ann Wright, our illustrious Lieutenant Colonel here, or Colonel, rather. And after maybe Ann, you could pick the next person. Thanks.
Well, my name's Ann Wright. I live here in Honolulu and have been here for about 20 years now, in and out. I do a lot of Veterans for Peace work here in Hawaii and on the mainland, and then travel around the world doing a lot of work. I was in the military, in the Army from 1967 to 1996. And then I also was a U.S. diplomat for 16 years, and then resigned in opposition to the war in Iraq in 2003. And that's what propelled me into this organization called Veterans for Peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. You want to tag the next person?
Okay, I'll call Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Yee. I'm a attender of Honolulu Friends meeting. It's a Quaker affiliate. It's a Quaker meeting. And I'm also on the board of Hawaii Peace and Justice. I'm actually what you call CFO, Chief Financial Officer, or simply treasurer. So I'm not a veteran, but I've been active in peace work since civil rights and Vietnam War, and you know, because Quakers don't believe in war. That's one of their testimonies is peace. Next person, maybe, how about Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Shields. I live in Kaneohe, Hawaii. I have for a couple of years. My father was in World War II. My grandfather was in World War I, and my both great-grandfathers were in the Civil War. So I have a history of being in the family being in wars. I was in Vietnam in 1967. I was a company commander in a combat engineer battalion and supporting the 9th Infantry Division in the Mekong Delta. And after that experience, I found that war was so confusing and we were so disliked by the people we supposedly were helping that I never believed in war again. And I joined the Quakers too, but just a few years ago. So that's my history, thanks. And maybe we could hear from Marlene.
Hi, my name is Marlene Coach Eisenstein, and I'm a Quaker and also a veteran. I joined the Army Reserves in 1974. That was during the Vietnam era. And I started out as an enlisted person. And 10 years later, I ended up getting a direct commission as an officer. And that after that time, I ended up going on active duty. So I was on active duty from 86 to until about 93. Then I got off of active duty. I was stationed here in Hawaii and I didn't want to leave. So I ended up getting a job working at the VA because I have a master's degree in social work. Working with veterans, and I didn't even know I was going to be a veteran when I got off active duty, but I worked with veterans, and that's when I really realized how all the damage that was happening to people. Talking to the veterans, hearing their stories, hearing how much they had to fight after they have already fought in wars, how much they had to fight for their rights and everything in this country. I advocated for veterans that I worked with, and I really realized that this is a real struggle for veterans. And I didn't like the wars, and I ended up getting this vicarious re-traumatization. Didn't know I had it, but I got it when I went to see Saving Private Ryan. And the first, if anybody saw that first opening action in that reminded me of what my veterans had been telling me that happened to them, where they saw bodies being exploded and all these things. And I broke down. And that's when I realized that all these stories were inside of me and they had affected me. And I really felt like I was wounded. And so I've always felt like I wanted to end wars, because all of the veterans that I work with said, war is ugly. I hate war. I don't want it to happen. And when they think about wars being declared, they go into hiding and they get depressed and all the other things. So that's been my thing. And I actually retired in 96 because I just didn't want to be a part of the military anymore. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm going to call on John.
Hi, I'm John Murphy. I was in the Navy from 65 to 67, did 3 Westpacks. I was with the amphibs. We dropped the Marines, pick them up, drop them. Thing I remember most about that experience is the B-52s bombing, blanket bombing over there. And even on the ship, we're out about 5-6 miles from shore. You could just feel the boat move as a result of it. Came away, didn't know, a lot of shame, did a lot of protesting in college. I joined the Quakers in La Jolla. I met Jim Summers. Jim Summers is very active in the Veterans for Peace. We had Arlington West going on there, where we would go up to Pendleton and put the crosses down and talk to the widows and the guys coming out, how stupid it was. Also, there's a lot of traction there because of the Navy Hospital in San Diego and a lot of Navy activity down there. So we could do a lot of protesting. I'm on Maui now, and it's like floating, you know, on a balloon. You know, there's no anger, no resentment, no history here. But recently we had a presentation, Quaker meeting, and a presentation about the Quaker House down in the southeast, by Fort Pennington, and about
Fayetteville.
Yeah, about how, you know, how they counsel people about getting out of the military, and now most of their work is dealing with people that are don't want to stay here anymore. You know, idolization, suicide idolization, and that really struck for me to think about what are we doing for one another. We're gonna need to check in. Feel very isolated here, but the VFW, Veterans for Peace, keeps me grounded. I'm glad I'm here.
Thanks, John. Glad you can make it. I had a quick question before you pick the next person. Do you guys, or there was a call for, oh, I'm sorry, maybe, forgive me. Wasn't there a call to meet at Pearl Harbor today? Or is that
We did do over here in Maui. It's any significant day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. We would read names in the park. There'd be about maybe 5 or 10 of us, and we'd each have a list to go through the names of those who were killed by our government overseas. We would give the name, hometown, service, when they were killed and how they were killed. And one person would start and reading the names, and then the next person would start. And by the time the 10th person started, we would all read together. Oftentimes, bystanders would come by and say, "What are you doing?" Really, really powerful. And so that was my nudge, or my leading, is to come up with that, something we can do as vets together, which I feel very significant. So I thought, hey, why not do it at the Pearl Harbor? You know, we just go down there, 5 or 10 of us, whoever wants to go down, go to the memorial circle in the visitor center, and just start reading names and see what happens. Unfortunately, people didn't think it was a good idea because of the gathering issues.
Yeah, sure. Well, John, real quickly, John, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. As you can see, John, that's exactly why we're here. We're a bunch of vets. See if we can get together and do something. So as you can see, look around, you're not alone, yeah? Are you able to pick someone else that hasn't introduced themselves, John? Anyone?
Helen.
You're muted. Okay.
Hi, Helen Jeffrey with Golden Rule Peace Boat, and Golden Rule is, well, I'm on the agenda for the Golden Rule summary. Right now I'm in California with my partner Jerry Condon, who is a veteran. I'm an associate member. I'm in Northern California right now, enjoying the peace and quiet of the river that I live on, and really looking forward to getting back to Hawaii again soon for at least 2 or 3 weeks, so that I can get our program back underway again.
Thanks, Helen. I'm glad you could join us. You're like 2 hours ahead of us now? You had a time change?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. You want to pick the next person, please?
Oh,
pick a name.
Sure. How about Kip Goodwin?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Helen. I'm Kip Goodwin. I'm on Kauai. I was drafted in 1967. They gave me a 1Y for having flat feet. That was the beginning of my awareness and education about war and the military. So now I'm the director of this youth outreach program, counter recruitment program. And so after introductions, I'm a little on the periphery of what all you Vets for Peace folks are here to talk about. But if I get a chance, I'd like to say a few words. Thanks. And I'm going to pass it on to Fred Dente.
Thanks, Kip. I'm really honored to be here with all of you folks. I have tremendous respect for you folks. When I saw the mission statement of Veterans for Peace, which Ann Wright gave to me, and she's the one that kind of got me interested in this. We were part of, Kip and I were part of an organization, we still are, called the Kauai Alliance for Peace and Social Justice. And we always had brought speakers, and we did a lot of other actions too, but we brought Ann over to Kauai more than once, and she graced us with her wisdom and inspired us. Anyway, so I'm here on Kauai with my family, my wife and two of my 3 stepdaughters, and been here since 89. My family has been on Kauai since 1978. And I'm originally from East Coast, New Jersey, grew up on the coast right there in the central Jersey, Bruce Springsteen country right around there. And graduated from college on a Saturday, 1965. Monday morning had a draft notice in the mailbox. And I was very much against militarism and, you know, what the United States government was doing ever since JFK. Well, that was my first, the first bolt of lightning that hit me. It was because everything up to that point was just, wasn't America wonderful? America was great then. I thought, I didn't know about what was going on underneath. Anyway, got in, I was lucky enough to get into a National Guard unit, I thought. At the time, a friend of mine was a cousin of the sergeant major, and they got me in. Everybody in the world wanted to get in there. The other option was going to Canada. I did not want to go to Vietnam, did not believe in what we were doing at all.
Certainly, and I'm on a Zoom call right now, so.
Oh. So anyway, got in the National Guard. I thought I was
okay.
Lucky. I thought I was lucky that I got in there because I did not want to leave my family. I mean, going to Canada didn't seem like, you know, looking back on it all, maybe I wish I did, but because I had some pretty bad experiences, which I'm still, believe it or not, I'm still, all these years later, I still have some PTSD from what happened. And we got called up one night in the middle of summer of 1967, the Summer of Love, it was called. And there was a riot going on in Newark, New Jersey. And I was a driver, so I got to drive the company commander up to Newark really slow. It took us a couple hours to get up there. We got up there, the whole sky was orange. And we were approaching a town called Orange, and another town called East Orange, and the whole sky, and then Newark, and then the whole sky was orange. The whole place was on fire. It all was because it was a police riot that started because some policemen beat up a taxi cab driver for having a light out or something on his cab. It was something ridiculous, and it was just a real hot, steamy summer in Newark, and people just exploded. African American community, and so anyway, what happened was, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time, but basically it was like open season to shoot anybody. There was a lieutenant who told us, you can go ahead and kill as many niggers as you want because they're not on the census. That's what he said. Pardon my French, pardon my language here, Marlene. I'm just telling you some facts. And anybody else, I don't like to use that word, but and that's what happened. A lot of people got slaughtered, and the New York Times came out and said there were 26 people killed, but I know there were hundreds and hundreds killed from what buddies of mine saw and what I saw. Anyway, that just completely freaked me out, and I I got a transfer. I had a transfer in progress before that actually happened to go to California and try to get into graduate school there, and got into a unit in Glendale, California. And then our unit got activated to go to Vietnam, and I did some things that maybe I'll tell you about later, but I don't want to take a lot of time, but I got out of the Guard at that point. Muhammad Ali was my hero, and I followed his lead, and I got out of the National Guard. And then, you know, that was just before, it was a month before Bobby Kennedy was killed, a month before that Dr. King was killed, and everybody was freaking out big time. And I've been an activist ever since to some degree. And then when I got to Kauai, we got together with the Kauai Alliance, and we did a bunch of good stuff and protested up at the Navy base where they're shooting off the missiles up there now. And anyway,
Thanks, Fred. I mean, you're giving us a lot of reasons why you're here.
I'm so sorry. Let me just say one more thing. I'm sorry to take up all the time that I have taken up. My interest in the Veterans for Peace, like I said, was by the example of Anne. I got to read that mission statement, and I've never seen a mission statement in any other organization or corporation or company or anything that I totally agreed with. And I totally agreed with that mission statement. I didn't really want to join any organizations, but I had to do it because I couldn't, otherwise I would not be true to my own beliefs and my own feelings, you know, and my own, how I felt about stuff and how I felt about life. So I joined, and I was hoping to start a chapter over here, because I think I was the first one on Kauai that actually became a member of Veterans for Peace. I was told that more than once, but maybe there are others I don't know about. But I wanted to start a chapter because right now we're part of the Neighbor Islands chapter 889, which is, I guess, all the islands. So we really don't have any, as far as I know, we don't really have a chapter on any of the other islands. It's a chapter that's specific to each island. And I wanted to do that. That's about the time that the Golden Rule and Helen and Zoe and the other folks came here with the Golden Rule, and that was really great. And then Helen and I talked, and others, we also talked about, you know, getting that together, trying to get that chapter started. And since then, quite a few things that I won't go into detail on happened to me and my family that were, in some cases, some people dying in our families, and other things that happened that were really bad, not even to mention the COVID thing and all the rest of the stuff that's going on with everybody. So I've pretty much been out of the mainstream here for the past, since for quite a few months now, and I'm just taking care of my family. My wife is needing help, and other folks that I know too. So anyway, here I am, and I don't know what's going to happen. I got together some of the names that I had, which is about 10 names or so of other veterans that were referred to me by various people who might be interested in becoming members. And I sent them an email yesterday with Pete's invitation and a bunch of other stuff about the Golden Rule and the Veterans for Peace, to invite them to be part of this Zoom. And I don't see any of them here, but you know, I'm gonna keep in contact with them. But I don't know where that's all going to go. But here we are. Let's see what happens from here. It's a world of uncertainty. Sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Fred. And you're on a small island, so feel hopeful about that. You mind picking someone, anyone that hasn't spoken yet?
Oh, let's see.
We're narrowing down.
Let me go on my other page here. How about Christian? Hi, Christian.
Hi, Fred. Thanks for picking me. My name's Christian Zavala. I am from Chicago originally. I joined the Marine Corps in 2015, or actually a little bit before then. I went to boot camp on January 4th, 2015. I've always known about the reasons for why the United States gets involved in conflicts, but having grown up in poverty and dealing with all the circumstances that come with that, like constant evictions from housing, as well as the lack of food or nourishment that comes with it. there was all of these stressors that were existing in my life that made it feel like I had like no other real alternatives. And so I figured in the fall or summer of 2014 to just go ahead and just go ahead and go through with enlistment. And then that's when like I said, I left Chicago for San Diego on January 4th, 2015. I did training there, and then I went to Florida for a bit for military occupational specialty schooling. And then I came to Hawaii for as my first and only actual duty station. And so that was in April of 2016. I served on Marine Corps Base Hawaii as an air traffic control communications technician and also as an air crewman, which I got to travel through different parts of the world. And I ended up meeting my partner here. So, I do feel kind of lucky in a sense that I did not end up going to, an actual combat zone as my first duty station, having to live through and see all the things that a lot of combat veterans with PTSD have to live with. And because of that, after meeting my partner, I kind of got thrown into a lot of the Native Hawaiian struggles, even while I was enlisted, doing things that command would not approve of had they figured out what I was up to while off duty. But I figured I would attend the Zoom meeting to just see how, what's going on and see potentially what I can do, especially now that I have exited the military. I've been out since December of last year.
Yay!
Yeah, that's pretty much my background.
Damn, Christian, I must say, you look hella handsome too with some face here, man. That was a good thing. But I didn't know that you weren't really in the military that long. It seemed like I met you a lot longer. Christian's been like poking around here and there for some time now, in the back of meetings and stuff. So he's been around, even though he's been in uniform for some time. But glad you ETS'd out safely.
Yeah.
And, you're in Oahu? Or Big
Yes,
Island?
I'm on Oahu, living in I'm gonna probably butcher the name, but Ka'ava. So
okay.
Yeah.
Antigua.
Yeah. Yeah. she's literally right across the street from me.
Okay. Oh, well, it's great you can be here, brother, and be free. Because I know you're always kind of like reserved and restricted before for obvious reasons.
Yeah. It was I think towards maybe like halfway a little bit, I was getting kind of like, I was definitely dealing with like a level of like frustration and maybe like some depression, because obviously wearing a uniform and then also being like fully aware of what it is we're doing to other countries, and especially the history of Hawaii is, it does wear on your conscience after a while. So happy to be out, and if you don't see me often, it's more often than not because I'm with Kalama and we're doing some native action somewhere.
Yeah, true that. Right on. Well, we got two people left, I believe, that haven't spoke yet. Share, why they're here. Albert, can you hear us?
Albert has written in the chat.
Okay.
Neither his audio nor his video work, so he's just listening to us. And he writes that he lived on Oahu from 1971 to 2001, and now he's been on Hawaii Island near Waimea since 2001 to the present time. He was a U.S. Navy submarine officer from 1971 to 76 on the USS James Monroe. He's been a member of SANE, the nuclear freeze on Oahu in the 1980s, and he's demonstrated against the Iraq War and for various peace and justice causes with Waimea Rainbow Peace Ohana. Peace and aloha from Albert.
Right on, Albert. Really glad to have you aboard, Albert. Thanks making it. And Jeannie, last but not least, you still there?
And we also have Mark.
Oh, my bad. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Mark sitting in the car. So too. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go, Mark?
Me to go? Oh, sure.
Yeah, please.
Well, I was drafted and went in 1971. That's the only lottery I've ever won. And I was in for 3 years. I worked as a combat medic and then a operating room technician, sort of an instrument nurse in surgery. And I actually loved the experience, although I was protesting before I went in and considered conscientious objector status, but I'm not religious. So after long talks with my parents, my father was in World War II, and he did experience quite a bit of combat. He was in the 10th Mountain Division in Italy. And so I never did, well, anyway, I decided to join rather than just be drafted. And that allowed me to work in hospitals. And my 3 years in the Army were actually a pretty terrific experience. I spent 1.5 years in Thailand working in a hospital with Thai surgeons and employees. So as a 21-year-old kid, that was a real good growing up experience for me. Since then, I've been involved in a lot of anti-war protests, and even though I'm not religious, the core of many of those protests were often Quakers. So really appreciate their involvement. And then I found Hawaii in the early 80s, 81, and volunteered at Haleakala National Park, which ultimately, I'm kind of a 60s misfit. I've done a lot of jobs. And when after experiencing Hawaii, I went back to school, and now I teach biology at a university and have the good fortune to live here and teach online, teach evolution and other biology courses. So anyway, I really appreciate Veterans for Peace. I've pretty much, other than attending quite a few protests against wars, I've just been subscribed to Veterans for Peace, but rarely gotten together with you all. So it's a pleasure to hear your stories.
We're grateful you could join us, Mark, from your car.
Yeah, if you'll forgive me, I'm gonna have to turn my camera off and continue shopping, but I'll put a Bluetooth thing in my ear so I can follow the meeting.
Okay, well, if you have anything important, you can always jump on the chat and type it in there.
Okay.
If you can't reach us.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Okay,
we have
thank you. Jeannie, are you there? You there, Jeannie?
Need to unmute. Jeannie does.
You with us, Jeannie? If you're there, we cannot hear you.
Okay, I think I got it now. Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
You can hear me?
We hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, for me, I'm actually on the Big Island right now. That's where I'm more or less based. But I've been involved in what we call the counter-militarism or recruitment education work here in Hawaii for I think this is the 17th year now that we've done it, and started with you, Pete, and other people. And I have worked with the Veterans for Peace a little bit in New Mexico on the issue because they do a lot of the outreach in the schools there. Otherwise, for me, my interest is I just am not into war at all. I got into this work more specifically in Costa Rica I was managing a youth hostel and peace center, a Quaker-based peace center. And when the Iraq War was starting to get drummed up, we organized the national protest there. And I came back to the US just thinking, you know, I can't stop the war, but at least maybe I can prevent some people from getting wasted by it. So I did conscientious objector counseling training in Albuquerque, and somebody there had a friend in Hawaii and said, oh, they really need help in Hawaii. So I'm like, well, hey, I'd rather go to Hawaii and do this. So I've been involved in our recruitment education efforts now. And I was also briefly, we had a GI rights hotline chapter for about a year. But yeah, before that, I had a cousin wounded in Vietnam that was, you know, I was very moved by that, whatever. I was upset by that. And then I've had boyfriends that were in the military and learned a lot about just the incredible waste and abuse of everything, and at the hands of our military machine. And so I've worked on different things like, you know, the nuclear weapons issue in New Mexico, and the Navy sonar stuff, and just a lot of things. But for me, it just, you know, I've met a lot of people screwed up and are over by the military. I think we can do better on the planet, and that we aren't essentially a violent people. So, you know, my focus has mainly been to try to help young people avoid the trap that recruiters who lie to them are setting for them. And veterans are really key toward that end, because they can give the kids the scoop better than anyone else. So, yeah, that's kind of my bottom line, I guess. So wherever
Right
I
on.
go,
Thanks,
just
Jean.
handing out cards, you know, about our 808 Truth to Youth efforts. So.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we,
you're reminding some of the work goes back some time, yeah. And
Sorry?
different generations. Some of the work goes back, and we have different generations of
Yeah.
veterans here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, while we're wrapping up this kind of intro, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jean.
No, well, I just wanted to say too, you know, that I've told Kip in our meetings before, anyone that doesn't know, like, I have been thanked by so many people, like parents, teachers, siblings, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, like with tears in their eyes about the outreach work that we do to try to help kids understand the realities of war and military life. Just, you know, just incredibly emotional interactions with so many people. It's, you know, like some stand out more than others, but just a big blur of I mean, thousands of people that I've interacted with at this point. So it's a really important work. So anyway.
and Jean, before we go on, Jerry Condon is here as the past president of Veterans for Peace National. So Jerry, why don't we have you say something, please?
Cool.
I think you're muted.
Hello, everybody. I was muted. Aloha.
Jerry.
Aloha. It's great to be with you. We miss Hawaii. It's nice to see Ann's washer and dryer hiding behind the walls there. Yes, I'm a Vietnam era veteran who actually refused orders to Vietnam. Spent 6 years in Sweden and Canada. So that's where I kind of learned how to be a peace activist, and I have been working for peace ever since. And I had the privilege of serving on the board of Veterans for Peace for 8 years, and 3 years as vice president and 2 years as president. And so this is a very special day. I was able to, somebody prompted me the other day, they said, actually United for Peace and Justice said, geez, we wish we had some kind of statement about Armistice Day. You think you might be able to write something up? So I said, sure, why not? So I wrote up a little statement, and it kind of morphed into a 1,000-word article. And so I pushed it out there a little bit, and much to my surprise, it got published by Popular Resistance, United for Peace and Justice, World Beyond War. And today it appeared on antiwar.com and also I think it's a fairly new publication, LA Progressive. So it really got around and got a lot of good feedback. And the gist of it was a little bit of history about Armistice Day itself and the strong desire of people all over the world, including very much in the US after World War I, to put an end to war once and for all. People were so horrified by the millions of deaths of both soldiers and civilians that occurred in World War I, and people had never seen anything like it. So there was actually a big movement in the US to abolish war. And even in the Congress, there was a majority opinion. In fact, as many of you know, the Secretary of State Kellogg and French Foreign Minister Briand won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1928, 10 years after the armistice was signed, for the treaty, what was called the Kellogg-Briand Treaty, which actually does outlaw war and calls on nations to solve their differences diplomatically. That was ratified by the U.S. Senate, and it actually continues to be, technically speaking, it continues to be the law of the land. Many other nations signed it as well. And of course, it hasn't really been enforced, and we know that the history of the last 100 years has been full of war. But now we have some hope, despite the continuing wars, despite the aggressive military policy that of the last several administrations, of really all of our administrations, including the incoming Biden administration, seems to be surrounding themselves with war hawks on the foreign policy front. It's very disturbing. But at the same time, we have the really encouraging news of the passage of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which was passed the UN General Assembly in 2017. And then just about 2 weeks ago, Honduras became the 50th country to sign that treaty, or to ratify it. And therefore, actually it passed in the General Assembly 122 to 1. Now that 50 countries have ratified it, it's going to be actually going into force on January 22nd, 2 days after the presidential election. Of course, unfortunately, none of the 9 nuclear armed powers, including the US, have signed on. And the US has actually been trying to muscle countries to withdraw their support for that treaty. But it's going to be a really, I think, a powerful vehicle for us to start pressing the nuclear armed nations to abolish their nuclear weapons, and also to pressure companies to stop engaging in the production of nuclear weapons and the parts that go into them. So at any rate, that's the good news. And I think that we have a lot of work cut out for us. We really have, we're facing twin existential threats: climate change and the growing possibility of nuclear war. As you all know, in Hawaii, there's a huge U.S. military footprint, not only in Hawaii, and that's growing, but throughout the Pacific, as the U.S. gears up for possible war against China, which could easily and probably would become a nuclear war. So there's really reckless brinksmanship going on and a huge military buildup. And if we're not able to turn it around, it's going to end us. So I think our work is more important and more urgent than ever. And even though we're up against a lot and have somewhat of an uphill struggle, we also have a certain amount of wind at our backs, especially with this new treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which expresses, it's not just a piece of paper that somehow somebody got through the United Nations, but it actually expresses the will of the people of the world. So the people of the world are on our side, and but our job is to get the governments to listen. So I'll end my spiel there, but just to say that Helen and I, spent quite a bit of time in Hawaii this last year with the Golden Rule anti-nuclear sailboat. And, you know, when we arrived there, our mission, of course, was to raise the profile of the danger of nuclear war and to remind people of the importance of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. But we ended up learning more than we brought with us to share. And that was to learn about the incredible militarization of Hawaii, as well as of the other Pacific Islands, and the effect, the very negative impacts on the environment, and even more so on the sovereignty rights and the cultural rights of indigenous Hawaiian people and indigenous peoples throughout the Pacific. So this is something that when the Golden Rule comes back to the United States and starts sailing around all around the United States, we're going to be carrying messages from Hawaii and from the Marshall Islands and from Guam and Okinawa, and not just talking about the importance of ending nuclear weapons and war, but also the importance of demilitarizing and decolonizing Hawaii and the Pacific. So thank you for sharing that all with us. We learned a lot from you, and from the many Native Hawaiian activists that we had the pleasure of meeting.
Thank you, Jerry. Quickly, that article you're talking about, last email, just about this thing, I include that link. Others folks, you know, we're wrapping this section, so I let people go, and there's another section we're going to talk about things that they've been involved in and work they've been doing. Well, some of you have already done that, so that'll help us, you know, flow through that section.
Sure, I think I put it. I think I posted it on the Hawaii VFP Facebook page, but I'll share it in the chat.
Oh yeah,
You're breaking up a little bit there.
And beat you to it. It's posted already.
Oh, okay, great.
But, you know, just before we close this section, though, I just want to remind you folks that there's about 5 other folks I talked to that we're going to try to make it. So there's more than that's in this group, which is really encouraging. You know, so the folks have been, some have expressed working around DMIL issues for decades here in Hawaii, and we haven't had since maybe Vietnam War, mass movement of vet resistance, if you will. So this is really important. But I do want to mention a couple names just out of respect of members past and present. As I was going through the roster, there's some folks on other islands, Big Island, for example, that couldn't join up. On the west side here that couldn't join up. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Charlie Luce. Charlie Luce was actually one of the co-founders of this chapter. I was able to talk to him briefly, and I just wanted to share he's fighting stage 4 cancer. So brother has another, you know, fight he's focusing on, and I know we all send our wishes to him, and I expressed that to him talking to them. And another member, I don't know if anyone knows Doris Aragaki. Okay, yeah, she's another old timer. She's in states of dementia, but she was an associate that was very involved during the 2000s when the VFP Oahu chapter had weekly rallies at the federal building during the height of the Iraq-Afghanistan wars. So they're with us in spirit. And I'm really grateful to see this passing the torch. We got quite a range of generations here. Grateful to see Christian here, one of the younger vets, and Hawaii that we got our work cut out, as was mentioned. I would like to shift over because, you know, looking at the time in our agenda, and I'm thinking about how we could get through some of this, but I do want to at least pay respects for one of the reasons we gathered today was for Armistice Day. And people have talked a little bit about Armistice Day, so I'm not going to say any more of that in the interest of time. What I was planning to do was during our moment of silence, which is, you know, a tradition for reflection, contemplation, respect, I was actually going to play a video, 1-minute video clip where you actually have an audio recording where you can hear the last artillery rounds from World War One, and then as they called ceasefire, you hear the rounds stop, and it's the sound that we're not really familiar with, the sound of peace, the sound of the end of war. But Ann and I, we tried it out earlier and was having technical difficulties, so I don't want to waste any time trying to load it up. What I thought maybe if you folks are with it, read a short proclamation because it's short, and it's also an example of what other VFP chapters have done. It's a resolution that was passed in Santa Cruz. And then, is it okay? And then maybe we just go for a moment of silence, if that's okay with folks. And in the way that you, especially with so many Quakers in the house, some Buddhists here, no, we sometimes start our meetings with silence, but this would be a good time to pay respects. So before we start that minute, and if anyone wants to jump in, because I don't mean to be ramming over everything, but I'm going to just pull up the statement and read this, and then we'll start. Here we go. Okay, sorry if you can't see me. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so whereas November 11th, 2018, this was written in 2018, commemorates the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day, 102 now. This holiday created to celebrate the end of World War I, the war to end all wars and dedicated to peace among all nations. And whereas during the Cold War era, Armistice Day was renamed Veterans Day, and the holiday emphasis on peace and the intent to foster peace among all nations was lost. And whereas the United States has, in the last 100 years, become a military power unequaled in the history of humankind, engages in wars and military conflicts all across the globe, maintains hundreds of military bases around the world, and invests inordinate and counterproductive amounts of time, energy, and resources in the defense industry and our armed forces in the name of freedom. And whereas nuclear war, drone warfare, cyber warfare, satellite, and conventional warfare represent an unprecedented threat to humankind and to the future of the planet, and whereas there exists no national holiday dedicated to peace, as was the intent behind the creation of Armistice Day in 1918. And whereas never before has the need to bring peace among all nations and all peoples been more urgent, and whereas Santa Cruz, the Central Coast, California, citizens of the United States, and peoples all our nations thirst for peace. Therefore, and then there's a proclamation by the mayor of Santa Cruz to proclaim that year is Armistice Day, in the spirit of peace abroad and among all nations. Go ahead and start the minute now. Okay. Thank you, sisters and brothers, for that time to pause and reflect in this busy, crazy time, especially on a day like today. I'm looking at our agenda, and we were talking about looking at some of our projects. Then I'm looking at the time and the reality that we're not going to get through all of these, and where are we going from here? So I'm looking for a little feedback. What do you think? And I know we were going to kind of co-do this. Should we still just at least talk about some of those items that are projects without going into detail?
Yes, I think we should, just to at least mention them, that we do have a lot of projects that various of us have worked on. And also we want to save some time for Kip to go into 808 a little bit more too. But some of the things that we've been working on, primarily out of Oahu, but Cancel RIMPAC, which was this summer. We had a large committee that worked on that in terms of getting publicity out, articles written, car caravans to alert the public about that huge naval exercise. We also have a continuing program on Red Hill, trying to get the 20 giant mammoth jet fuel tanks that are on Red Hill that are only 100 feet above the water aquifer, the aquifer for the water of Honolulu, and that are leaking, to try to get that closed. So we have had petitions on cancel RIMPAC. We had over 15,000 signatures there. We have just put up a new petition on shutting down the fuel tanks at Red Hill and working with the Sierra Club on that. Also, another initiative is trying to get the lease that the state of Hawaii gave to the U.S. Army 65 years ago, where 23,000 acres of the Puakaloa military training area is coming up for renegotiation, release. The state of Hawaii gave it to the Army for $1, 65 years. So we now have all sorts of people have written in on the environmental impact statements, both on Red Hill and on Puakaloa. And we do have a petition up on that. So those are some of the things that we have been working on here. And let's see, is there any, West Lock is another one. The expansion of the naval weapons storage area at West Lock, which may include nuclear weapons. I mean, they don't talk about it, but the probability that nuclear weapons are taken off nuclear submarines as they come in for maintenance is quite probable there. Okay, so that's a quick run through. Thank you.
Well, okay, there was a couple more. Thank you. That was quick. The purpose of the meeting is to go in depth with these programs. Save the VA is an ongoing program, the VFP National, but also Jim had taken up that cause. Did you have a sentence or two to say about that, Jim? If you unmute.
There have been demonstrations on the mainland. I did try to contact the head of the VA here, although I was unsuccessful. But we are still, our posture is that we don't want the VA privatized. So that's about it.
Thanks. There are many other programs nationally, but these are some, you can tell, are a lot of local issues. And last but not least, and this is not a exhaustive list, is what Kip had mentioned before about alternatives to military service, counter recruiting. It's known by several names. Kip, I know you wanted to say a few words, and that's about the time we have. Probably the most useful thing for you in this meeting is to have other volunteers, right? Because that's been we've been doing this for like 20 years now, and it's been a matter of capacity. And
young volunteers. That's what we would like to get feedback from the youth community.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna step away from that a little bit and just pick you guys' brains a little bit.
Just a little bit.
The Council on Foreign Relations put out a study in July, and it's about the demographics of military personnel. And this factoid jumped out at me. Hawaii is the third most successfully recruited state behind South Carolina and Florida. They compared the number of enlistees to the population of military age young people in every state. So why is this? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the same reason that all our young people are moving away from home and going to the mainland. It's the cost of living. Well, if that's true, why are all these young people enlisting in Florida and South Carolina? And to round out the top five, it's Georgia and Mississippi. So does Hawaii have something in common with these four southern states? That's something we would really like to know, because that would really help us refine our messaging when we are out reaching these people on social media and trying to drive traffic to our website. So I don't know if that's going to start a conversation here. That wasn't my intent. I'm going to ask you, Pete, if anybody has any really good ideas. Maybe some of you people who have spent time in the South if you could be the recipient of any replies, and then you could forward them on to me.
Well, the option for anybody growing up in Hawaii is working at a hotel and living with mom until she dies and then getting her house. Not having a car, so no real options that they have unless you're surfing. But if you want a family, you either have to move to Nevada or Dallas, or there aren't any other jobs. And the military is attractive to get off the rock for these two. And we have, I think, a very virile community compared to a lot of other states, where you see these kids growing up. They're 5 years old and they're on a board. You know, they're 10 years old and they're doing flips on a skateboard. So they really, it's maybe a very virile, you know, manly type of thing to do. You're a waterman. You know, you're looked up for that. And you get into uniform and you're looked up for that. We have a large museum on Maui, the Nisi Memorial for the 442. And you know the history of the Japanese soldiers that joined up while their parents were being arrested and coming to the rescue of a lot of mainlanders, Texans, the Lost Brigade and so forth. So that runs deep, at least on Maui. And when you look at the options of going to work with mom for 30 years at a hotel, and a military gives you a uniform and 3 hots and a cot and maybe an education. I mean, really, even graduating from high school has little purpose to my mind, on Maui, because they're going to be doing the same thing they did when they were 5 years old, is going surfing, which is a beautiful thing to do. So I don't know. That's my 4 cents on that.
Okay, well,
Thanks, John.
those southern states don't have a high cost of living. So
Well, if I could just interject here, maybe what we could do here, because we're just trying to be productive. I mean, most of them have like expressed their knowledge back on the military. So, you know, we don't need any preaching. We need volunteers. We need people to help. So maybe, Kip, what you could do is in the chat area, put your email contact, please. And my hope is that by the end of this meeting, folks can find something that they're interested to work on, possibly, or when a follow-up meeting would be, and then we could start with their Kip. Okay, if that sounds okay. You know, but before we go on, just real simple, there's a lot of different reasons why people join the military, but there's one very clear thing is that the economy follows enlistment. So when the economy is doing good, the enlistment rates go down, and it works both ways. That's the majorative. And when you talk about states, it's important to remember that the people who enlist in the highest rates per capita aren't even citizens, can't vote for the commander-in-chief. I'm talking about Chamorro and Guam and Samoans and Micronesians enlist in the highest rates per capita in the world. And they don't even necessarily get all the benefits when they get out as non-citizens. But if we could, let's keep moving down this list of projects. And we also want to talk about the Golden Rule. And there was the convention I had listed on the agenda. In the interest of time, if it's okay, I'm going to be very brief about the 2020 convention and then leave it open for anyone else that wants to add. Every year, there is a convention for Veterans for Peace. This year was the first time, naturally, that it was done virtually. And as folks may know, that the benefit of that is folks who cannot normally come can show up. And so it was a really, really passionate, powerful convention. So I'm just sharing that. It's every summer. For your knowledge, so for in the future, if you're interested in joining up. One of the takeaways, because I said I would try to make this short, thanks, Ann, is they had a lot of discussions on different issues, just like here, and that's why I'm being careful not to get in any issues, because we could just spend hours just on one issue. We're just talking about the overview here. What are we going to do next? One thing I just want to share is they had a conversation of what chapters can do. and VFP, because I want to be clear, I didn't mention this in the beginning. Veterans for Peace is a very decentralized organization. There is a national board and so forth. We heard from Jerry, but also a lot of work happens in the chapters. And the chapter doesn't come down a question about the issues in their communities, and then they pick an issues or several to focus on, whatever their capacity is, their bandwidth. So what really impressed me was the variety of things chapters were doing, especially during a pandemic. A lot of the traditional things that, like, for example, today is usually a lot of parades. A lot of chapters organize things, big events, small events, they participate in parades, etc. But because of COVID, you know, people have had to modify and do different activities. Not all online either, not all Zoom activities. So I'll just throw out a couple examples and shut up. I heard examples of people like adopting highways, you know, the cleanup. So they got that sign that said, you know, this area cleaned up, sponsored by Veterans for Peace, whatever, chapter 552. Folks were doing things like sponsoring softball teams or soccer team, you know, like kids teams. They would sponsor, the chapter would sponsor teams and get their name out. I was really impressed. Some chapters, again, it's a matter of their capacity and the member size. For example, in Chicago, they have an amazing counter recruiting system. It's not even a project, it's a system going on, you know, a counter system to a very highly militarized. And then there's a lot of folks that are like some of the folks here that are somewhat isolated or kind of scattered, are not amidst a big chapter. So people have found creative ways to work together. And yeah, I'll just wrap it up here because I just want to say that there is no like, this is what we do. It's really a matter up to us, what we can do, our imagination, and what our passions are. And so that's why I thought we'd say more about the convention, but in the interest of time, anyone want to add to that? Was that the convention, or any other plugs?
Yeah, I'll just mention there is an incredible array of webinars that were done for the convention, and they are on, there's a Veterans for Peace YouTube channel, and so you can go on that. Our chapter, various members of it were part of a webinar on Korea, one on Palestine, one on the nuclear issues. Helen led a plenary session on nuclear issues. So there's a lot of really good material there that at your leisure, you can just kind of flip through it and listen to as much as you want and turn it off whenever you want to. But there's a lot of good stuff there. And I'll put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat.
Awesome, thanks, Ann. And that's great. Maybe that one on chapter ideas is on there, I hope. It's glad we have Helen and Jerry here. Did I say, you already said some things about the Golden Rule. Is there anything that was left out that you wanted to say about the Golden Rule before you move on?
Well, yes. I was just on a very exciting webinar today with the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. And we would like to do something really special on January 22nd. By that time, I think Golden Rule will be back in Honolulu in Alawai.
January 22nd.
And January 22nd is the day that nuclear weapons become illegal internationally. So that's the day the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons comes into force. And everyone around the world is going to be celebrating that and announcing it to everybody else so that it really raises the visibility. I'd like to get a huge banner on Golden Rule so that people know that nuclear weapons are now illegal, and possibly do some sort of action on the shore as well as from the Golden Rule sailing in Honolulu Bay. So just keep your eyes open for that. We'll see what we can do together safely.
And Marlene would like to say something, or maybe she left. She was waving. I guess she just left. Okay.
Oh, she did say she would have to leave about this time. So, but we're in touch with Marlene. She's a longtime member.
Well, and one other thing, Helen, why don't you go into a little bit about what the plans are for the Golden Rule? Because some people may not realize what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we recently decided that instead of sailing further into the Pacific to the Marshall Islands, Guam, Okinawa, and Japan, that because of COVID-19 and the shutdown of other countries, that we needed to bring Golden Rule back home. So yeah, we probably will be sailing Golden Rule during the month of May back to California. And then it's entirely likely that in December of 2021, we will start what's called the Great Loop. And that is sailing the Gulf states up the eastern seaboard into the Great Lakes, all around the Great Lakes and down the Illinois and Mississippi rivers. That will fulfill the vision of the people that rebuilt Golden Rule from 2010 to 2015 to sail all the navigable waters of the United States.
And of course, to have big events in all the major cities in the United States, and many minor ones as well.
So huge plans coming up.
Yeah, but that still means that we'll be in Hawaii for another 5-6 months. So we're open to your ideas as well as to things that Veterans for Peace and others might like to do with the Golden Rule while it's still in Hawaiian waters.
That is a major point that needs to be highlighted, what you just said, Jerry. So that's for everyone here. We have this opportunity. So if you have ideas, calls to action, and so forth, please consider. While we have this, and support while we can. Before we're moving up, forgive me, I'm usually a person that likes to. Never mind. Let me just stay on the schedule here, because some people have had to leave already. This next section, because we've been talking for some time about different issues, which is important, I want to pause and ask if there's any regional issues for folks that haven't talked. And we talked about Pohakuloa, Red Hill, for example, just as a couple. But Hawaii is almost 25% military. So there's a range of issues we know across all the islands in different intensity. So is there any folks want to talk about any regional issues in your neighborhood or that haven't been talked about that you think VFP should consider talking about? And this is a very Oahu-centric question because, you know, I'm aware of stuff happening here, but less so on Maui, Kauai, Big Island, for example. There's several other Big Island folks, by the way, that couldn't make this meeting today. We have folks out there too. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of military conflicts here in Hawaii, is there? I don't want to overlook other areas, neighborhoods, if you will, zip codes, because we've addressed some of the major ones, and yeah, quite a few are in Oahu where a lot of the military is concentrated. But my hope is the VFP, maybe this will become officially the Oahu chapter, and maybe I'm thinking ahead, but my hope is that folks will be able to start chapters on their islands. I believe in sovereignty and decentralization, and you know, folks on the ground know better than other folks what's going on, what the needs are. So again, anyone else have any regional issues in your neck of the islands?
Well, I'll just show you.
Albert writes, to avoid division, VFP Hawaii should not take a position on construction of the TMT. That's what he puts in.
Okay. Well, we already passed a resolution that was passed by the. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off. Just Albert, that position, not only has it been made, they've had delegations of veteran folks visit Mauna Kea, and I don't know. I don't want to be the last word on it. Someone else want to comment?
I think Kip wanted to say something before that.
Last week, there was an article in our local, the Garden Island newspaper, that Headline is PMRF at forefront of new age warfare. We build weapon systems for delivering nukes across the ocean, and then we have to build countermeasures, all costing up into the trillions of dollars, but you all know that. I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Kip. That's an ongoing issue. I don't want to disrespect Albert's position, but I also want to respect others, because we've also had folks mention that it's a bad idea to not take a position on TNT. So we can see we have even some division here. And I'm just going to leave it on that, considering that this is not a new issue. It's already actually been addressed by VFP. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You know, while we're getting, doing Zoom, I'm understanding the limits of people's attention and energy. So I want to honor and respect that. I guess I want to start wrapping up more to where do we go from here, and what folks wanted to personally focus on. And I don't want to exclude, we've been talking about a lot of political issues or military issues, but I didn't want to overlook that, because someone suggested to me that we also look out for each other. And that includes issues of mental health issues that a lot of vets struggle with, and other issues. So I don't want that to be off the table either. We mentioned, as Jim mentioned, Save the VA project was about preserving services for veterans. So I also didn't want to overlook that topic, because it didn't come up until I mentioned it. So that could be an also issue or project if it's someone or some folks want to focus on taking specifically on vets, you know, but other folks might want to just focus on eliminating veterans by focusing on counter recruiting, you know. In the time we have left, do you have thoughts, Ann, or other folks, about how to proceed with where people are at? Are there areas that you want to jump into, and some next steps?
I think by setting the next meeting and building on this energy we have here today is a good idea. We can think about it, focus on what's happened today, and come forward with these, with some ideas. I find it a great connection. That there's very few veterans that I know, and it's just a connection that I have, you know, a special experience that I had. It's very important, and I don't think anybody else gets it but a veteran. Absolutely.
That's I thought that was a prerogative that we at least have a follow-up. We're going to meet up again. Absolutely. What about this? What if every person got very briefly either a question that you don't have answered yet from this gathering, or maybe an area, you know, we talked about some project areas that we've been looking at. Maybe you could express what for you would be of interest to you to focus on. And also, I don't know, because my hope is that folks on Maui, Big Island, Kauai can organize, and I'm trying to get folks together to do that, but it's not quite there yet. But I want to go that direction if possible.
Yep.
So
Pete, if I could mention, you know, on the national level, Veterans for Peace is trying to use this time when none of us can get together, none of the chapters can have face-to-face meetings really. So they have a lot of things that they're offering online, like a weekly meeting of veterans. And if you go on the Vets for Peace website, you'll see a lot of things that are happening. So that's one thing that, you know, to look and see what is going on the national level, and connecting with things like stop privatization of the VA and other things like that. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about the national?
please.
Yeah, just because I don't know. I just was curious, is the Vets for Peace nationally going to try to send something to Biden, like the president-elect and the vice president, about their feelings about let's stop the war machine? Which I know is a big subject, but I just was curious.
take a stab at answering that quickly.
Okay.
I'm certain that will happen. All the peace and justice groups right now are looking
Yeah.
at, especially at Biden's incoming foreign policy team, which is
Right.
scary. So
Yeah.
there's a number of initiatives being mounted right now, and groups are talking to one another. So it might not happen in the next couple days, but
Right.
I'm sure that Veterans for Peace nationally, along with other peace groups, will definitely be making public statements to the incoming Biden administration that we want to end these endless wars, and we want to see a foreign policy team that
Right.
respects our desire for peace.
Cool. Okay.
And,
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
also, you know, we
But
can't overlook.
it wouldn't hurt.
Sorry,
You know,
we can't.
chapters often take the initiative to come up with their own statements, and that's
Yeah.
sometimes they
Yeah.
act faster than national, and that helps national.
Mm-hmm.
Get,
I just wanted to add to not overlook that Veterans for Peace for 8 years was in Biden's face already with the Obama administration. So it's not a new, in fact, you know, we already know he's not a friend of places like Okinawa and other military colonies. You know, he was the most conservative Democrat that ran. And so
Yeah.
we have our work cut out for it, but that's okay. Did you, sorry. Yeah, Helen's, I see your hand sign.
There's an initiative that I would like Veterans for Peace to consider on all the islands. The City and County Council of Honolulu passed a year ago a resolution in support of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and other things that we could do to stop the possibility of nuclear war. And although we've been welcomed into all of the counties on all of the islands, I'm thinking that those resolutions are valuable to educate people, and we might like to work with Maui, the Big Island, and Kauai to get the other 3 counties signed up. And then when the legislature comes back in January, I believe it is, the Hawaii State Legislature, I think it would be good to work on getting them to join what's called the ICANN Cities Appeal, which is where cities say that they are urging their federal governments to ratify the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So it's an initiative I think that the Veterans for Peace and the Golden Rule Project could collaborate on very nicely.
Thanks, Helen. Absolutely. That's a great idea. Yeah, you know what, before people start sharing about what their interests or questions are too, is any other suggestions of ideas or projects? Were you gonna say something, Fred? Sorry, I thought you were.
No, I
Okay.
think it'd be good though, well, as long as I have the space here. I think it'd be good that maybe between now and when we get together again, we all think about that. I know it seems like overwhelming almost how much stuff is going on right now. And we have a president who is a war criminal in my opinion. And, you know, actually all the presidents since at least World War II are war criminals in my opinion, including Jimmy Carter to some extent, to a smaller extent. But anyway, you know, so there's plenty of stuff that we can do. Plenty of things we can choose from. Some of us may have more limited time than others, like myself. So maybe, you know, I'll think about that between now and then. Something that I feel like I can, you know, stick my teeth into that it's not going to, that I feel really strongly about. You know, there's so many things to choose from. But anyway, that's just an idea, you know. Have some time, and it's kind of hard to think about it right now and to come up with something right now.
Fred, that was outstanding. You're right. This is a lot to think about in a short conversation, just meeting people. Folks that haven't had much support may want to think about, well, what's happening in my zip code, my island? You know, are there opportunities that, for example, this is one vets in Oahu have not really exploited, if you will. And that is the parades that come out through the year, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, et cetera. You could enter as a Veterans for Peace contingency. Other islands have done it. When it's been done, you know, it's very controversial. It's great, gets people thinking, and you get that mix of tears, like Jeannie mentioned, and outrage, but it's unless vets speak up, they only hear that one side. They paint vets as one picture, and we know we're much more diverse than that. And I think we all know that there's a lot more pissed off vets. I'm meeting a lot more younger pissed off vets. And just to encourage you folks out, this is not the totality of veterans working for peace. There's several organizations vet-based that are also doing good work that have been consistent of younger vets, post 9/11 vets, Common Ground, About Face, Vote Vets. There's other organizations. There's a lot going on, but something that may leave us some space to focus on what do we need to do here in Hawaii, because we are one of the most militarized places in the world, right? Definitely in the country, if not the world. And we're isolated. When we go to VFP talks today, not talking about Jerry and Helen, who spent some time here, but some folks still have these images of Hawaii's all beaches, and they couldn't believe the military, dropping bombs here. So, yeah. One of the things that we've been able to do in Oahu, this chapter here, we did start meeting regularly, and that's something we get to the next section about steps from here. But one of the things we have done to just keep things going in the meanwhile was, one, meet at least once a year. Thank you, Ann Wright. Whenever she come into town, we might have a meeting. But it was good because it was get us together, because everyone's kind of involved in other issues, retirement, caregiving, et cetera, anyway. So one area that we've been able to collaborate, and that's the key, is collaborating. Everyone's got their hands full. So how do we work as a team? One way has been writing joint statements, editorials, articles that go into newspapers, et cetera, online conversations here and abroad. And that's something to think about. I want to take, John was talking about feeling very isolated. Maybe, John, an issue that is really important to you, you bring it up to a circle of other vets. Perhaps we could come up with a joint statement. Sometimes what happens is one or two people will write something, and then we pass it along to members to give feedback and so forth. And then before you know it, you have a chapter statement, if you will, that chances of being published are higher and its impact are higher. Like, as you folks know, that because it's a militaristic country, empire, and culture, they elevate military above civilian. We give them all these recognition. We have, Memorial Day. We don't even think about all the civilians who died, right? We just focus on our soldiers. So
I feel like I want to get arrested, I want to chain myself to a fence somewhere, or get a hammer and go after a nuclear weapon somehow. I'm just so pissed off, just so up to here with it all.
Well, we can find that for you, John.
Yeah.
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I can represent myself. I have a law license.
Our plowshares people that are at Kings Bay, Georgia, the last set of them will be sentenced to federal prison probably next week. So if you want to do that, we've got some friends that can sure help you out.
All right.
Yeah. Bottom line here is, like, I think a lot of us are upset, pissed off as well. And the key is, how do you channel that anger into some energy that releases that energy from being anger stuck in you that causes things like cancer, and gets released so it becomes a healing process, and we heal the world at the same time. I think ultimately. So with that, maybe folks, we could go around, because I'm looking at the time, and I want to hope to wrap up maybe in the next, I don't know, by 6, okay? If that's okay.
I think Jerry.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is all kind of open now too.
Okay, just quickly, Hawaii is obviously a very unique place, and a very unique place in the world, and it's a stepping off point for U.S. intervention in the Pacific. And I noticed that being there, that one of the ways that the Native Hawaiians and other islanders have broken their isolation is by forming networks among the Pacific Islands. People from Hawaii and Marshall Islands and Guam and Okinawa and other islands, New Zealand, are working together. And one of the ways they're doing that is right now is using Zoom. They've had several Zoom webinars recently, Cancel RIMPAC and others. So I'm thinking that, Veterans for Peace might take a page from their book and similarly make a special priority to network with veterans. In Guam and Okinawa, there's a Veterans for Peace chapter in Okinawa that's quite active. There's a Veterans for Peace chapter in Japan. Of course, I know, Pete, you're plugged in with those folks. But, you might decide to have some maybe regular communications, maybe bi-monthly Zoom calls with veterans and indigenous activists on those islands. And that could potentially take on a life of its own.
Absolutely. Anyone else have anything burning they want to share? Thank you. Let's just kind of open it up a little bit as we start wrapping up. Okay. That includes Albert. You're not forgotten. We know you're there. Okay then. Well, so as far as meeting up again, I hear several votes of interest. It's November. Next month is December. We all know December is a busy time, especially for family, but it's also kind of a slow time for activism, politics, whatever reasons, it's less stuff going on. Should we plan for a meeting next month, folks? And then I guess part of my question, if next month is okay, is kind of like, well, should it be after Christmas or before Christmas? Because I don't know folks' lives and their busyness. We're in different stages of life here, but I want to be mindful of that. First of all, should we meet next month? To get thumbs up, down, or I don't.
Yeah. Why don't we do one month from today, say December 11th? Let's see what day.
Same time. Yeah.
The December 11th is a Friday. How's Sundays for folks? I know a lot of folks go to church, but maybe Sunday afternoons? Like around this time, 4?
With Quakers, we're all tied up on Thursday. Yeah.
How about Monday? How about Monday the 14th?
Monday's good for me.
Okay.
I'm still kind of, I'm never going to retire, okay? I got a daughter I'm dealing with in school. I don't know. What about Saturday, the 12th? It's my father's birthday. Saturdays work for folks?
Let me check here.
Whatever you pick, Pete's fine with me.
Okay, thanks.
That'll be okay.
What you're doing, putting it all together, you should have the choice of when you want to do it.
Okay, so we tentatively going with the 12th then? Okay.
Yeah. What time?
Some of us folks, what time of the day? That's a great question. Is best for on a Saturday morning, afternoon?
What evening?
I like the morning, but it's all flexible.
Any other strong feelings? No, I kind of want to. Okay. Well, why don't we go somewhere in between that night and morning? If that's okay. All right. And then I'm also thinking about time zones if there are folks, but most of us are here in Hawaiian time. Was this time okay, 4 o'clock, or should we make it a little earlier, 3?
4 is fine, Pete. Just pick it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go for 4.
Okay. And then with the, a little more advanced notes, maybe some of the folks that couldn't join us today can. And before we go, I'd like to hear, folks want to share a little bit, maybe what they're thinking of where they're going with this, because ultimately we're individuals that are trying to make change in the world. So you know, hooking up with other people to make that happen. So maybe if folks want to share some areas of interest they're looking at continuing or expanding on. Does that make sense? So I'll say, for example, maybe as a demonstration, what I'm looking forward to is to continue on some of these direct military challenges right now that are ongoing, particularly Pohakuloa and Red Hill. That's my personal focus. But my larger hope is that we can mobilize more. I already expressed hoping that eventually we could have island chapters, but until we get there, I'm also hoping that we can pull in, not recruit, but pull in more younger vets, and also military dependents, you know, folks that are, you know, we call associates, but they have more than just a passion for peace. They have relationships and connections, you know, with the military and growing up. And I feel they should be welcomed and maybe even given their own status in the VFP membership, but that's just my opinion. I don't know, I'm really grateful to each one of you for showing up. You know, it's been, as John and others expressed, it's been really, really difficult to get vets together in Hawaii. So this is really quite something, and I can only see it building because we're getting so much positive comments. I'm passing the mic to Ann.
Yeah, Albert he just said it was POW for him, so he's out of here. I want to see if I can play something that just came out of Veterans for Peace National, which is a composite of a lot of discussions about, let me just see, let's see, there it is right there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think it's.
Oh, we just lost it.
Okay. Well, I'll turn that off then, because that's not it. But if you go to Vets for Peace, you'll see a composite that was made about Veterans for Peace on this Armistice Day, and it's about 15 people saying a specific phrase in a script that came out that was very interesting. So if you have a chance, take a look at that.
Thanks, Ann. And thanks for reminding us the importance of art. There's other ways to make, you know, statements and positions as through art creatively. What do you, I don't know, do you have your takeaways for the next meeting? Oh, sorry. Maybe we just give everyone a chance to speak. Fred, what do you, are there any areas of that interest you today, and are you looking forward to?
Well, the thought that came to me was I'm going to continue to communicate with the 10 or so veterans that I have been contacting, and I don't even know most of them personally. I never met them, but people had recommended them to me, and of interested veterans. So I want to keep in contact with them, and I want to get the minutes from today's meeting and any other information, so I can just try keeping people interested in what's going on. Maybe they can plug into the next meeting. I'll tell them, you know, how easy this was and how welcoming everyone has been. And that's about the best I can do, is do some communication stuff from home here. And you know, I've got a million different interests as far as all the different issues and stuff. Like one of the things I want to work on is helping to support the senatorial recounts in Georgia. I think that's really important. If we can get the senators in there, you know, even though I'm not a big Biden fan, I do feel like we're doing way better than the other guys. You know, we're maybe some progressive voices can make some things happen on the national level. Really going to move things along here. So that's one of my main interests. Has nothing to do with Veterans for Peace, but maybe it does in a different way.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the Senate anyway, not really Biden, and that has everything to do with Armed Services Committee,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very, very critical. Good point.
Yeah.
If folks don't mind, oh, sorry, go ahead. I hear someone want to speak. Okay, Jim, I'm just trying to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. Jim, you have any takeaways, things you want to carry on or look forward to maybe in the future with VFP?
Well, I'm
And
interested
thanks
in,
for taking notes.
yeah, okay, I'll get it out. VA health and the VA retirement, communities and the VA, the VA homes. That's been a real problem. But that's just my own personal thing. So.
Wow, it affects a lot of people. Thanks, Jim. You know that, folks, that's an example. Like say Jim's really super passionate about that. Jim could like either create a campaign, an article, and then present it as with approval, a chapter piece. So it's not just Jim as an individual personal interest, but it becomes an organizational issue. So one person can make a lot of difference in a group. Sandy, do you have anything you want to focus on, continue, look forward to?
Sandy.
Unmute.
Is he there?
No, he's still muted. Sandy, can you unmute? There
So
he
I
goes.
was saying the Red Hill fuel tanks is a big interest of mine, simply because the water we drink is coming from that aquifer that the fuel tanks are built above. But I also feel, I mean, all those things I think are important. Pohakaloa, Westlock, the new weapon storage in Westlock. I mean, that's a big community out there, and the military doesn't give a rip about building things in other people's backyards that will be harmful to them. And so I think they need to know that people are upset about it. If we just let them do their own thing, they're just gonna keep on doing it. But the other thing I think is really important is to expand this group. Like you said, get more young vets in, build, with people. There's a bunch of people I know that were coming to the VFP meetings at the office that, I need to let them know about these meetings. And so, and also 808 Truth to Youth, I think they really need vet input into, speaking to young people and getting young people to know the horrors of the military and war.
Thanks, Sandy. And thanks for reminding me as we go to Kip. Kip, I forgot to mention to you that I talked to Stephanie. She's a coordinator with We're Not Your Soldiers. And long story short is they've had speaking tours of soldiers, and I try to arrange things in Hawaii. It's a bit far from the West Coast. But the point is now that everything's online, and a lot of schools are doing their classes distance, that to connect you up with more younger vets to be guest classroom speakers. So I'll connect you with Stephanie, okay? And
Okay.
did you have any other thoughts you want to leave us so that you shared quite a bit about the project? What are you looking forward to the next meeting?
Just to say that someday the pandemic will come to an end, and the conversation about putting a young vet or veterans into a classroom ebbs and flows. So We need to keep that in the back of our mind. I could sure see that young veteran Christians of a classroom, for example. But we meet people all the time, and some of them are going to be young veterans, and put the question to them. That's by far the best way, face-to-face, to communicate our counter-recruitment message to young people.
Absolutely.
Can I mention on that too?
Yeah, actually, if you're done, Kip, we can go to you, Jeannie.
Yeah, because
Thank you all.
if some of those people would at least be willing to do a little video, that we could put on the website and stuff, like at least that would be a start. I mean, because Kip, I've talked about Marty and stuff, but if they want to look at the website and see the format that we have, and they would like to at least just share a little personal story, that might be good in the meantime.
Yeah.
No?
Christian,
And
right?
anybody who, sorry?
How about Christian? Maybe he would, since
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna get to
Since I
Christian
don't
right
know
after
him.
Jeannie.
Yeah, but I also wanted to mention something too, just that, we still have our cards, our business cards to hand out, and also T-shirts. And so I don't know how, if Jim, doesn't have the access to the designs to put on the meeting, on the minutes, maybe somehow we could get that out. And anybody that would like to have cards, like at least just a handful of cards to hand out to anyone that they're meeting in, as they go about their life, we can do that. We can send them out if we have everybody's address. I'm happy to try to send them out to people. So.
Okay.
Can I say,
You gotta do
something related to what Jeannie was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
If vets can put together a video with, some short program maybe that even a non-vet can take into a school, and it can be a part of their presentation, that would be really great. I mean, like, I think that would be a good start to help in the schools.
Well, it's hard to get into school now, but
I gotta go soon,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here, aren't we?
Yeah.
So if you gotta go, thanks, Sandy. I want to make sure Christian and Helen and guys get in there. Thanks for the Cookie Frogs too, Jeannie. Good to hear those
Yep.
again. Christian, you still there, brother?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So, you have any thoughts, takeaways, and what's questions left on the table? Where should we go?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm still kind of thinking about it. I know I've been asked by a teacher, but he's not in Hawaii. He's in Minnesota. If I would one day consider doing since they're doing online school, hop in online and do a
Mhm.
video chat with the students. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that right now. I mean, I think someone said that. I think it was Janie said that getting into classrooms would be hard, but I think it would be kind of easier to get into, not into an actual physical classroom, but it would probably be a lot easier to do virtual meetings with students, I suppose,
Yeah.
if there was somebody that in Hawaii in the school systems wanted to have one of us talk story with the students.
Mm-hmm. Can I comment on that?
Yeah,
Quickly, we got people
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah, because my thought is just, Christian, if for instance, if you haven't looked at the website, if you wanted to, and you would see there's stories from different people, little personal videos, if you wanted to do something like that, then a teacher could see that and say, hey, would you be willing to expound, to my classroom or something? Just a thought.
Yeah,
But they could meet you that way.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought if you wanted to check out the website and see how there's some different videos there, and if you feel up for doing a personal one, it can just be, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It depends how long you want to go for it. But that's all really good content that kids can see and go, oh, wow, here's the real deal, So.
There's a link in the chat. Let me see. I'm not seeing it.
Mm.
No, I
The
don't see it.
808truth2youth.org.
Okay, I'll make a note of that and I'll check it out.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah,
If you're up for it, you know.
I was gonna say that as we start wrapping up too, folks, on that note, the chat room and everything is gonna go bye-bye. So if there's something that you need to like, oh, I better save this site or this link, is to make sure you do that in the next couple of minutes.
Well, and you can also save it yourself. If you go to chat, let's see, to the chat,
Oh, is
over
it
on
file?
the bottom right side are
Oh,
three
save chat.
and one of those dots will say save chat, and then it'll send it as an email to you.
Told you guys I'm a dumbass on Zoom. I didn't know that. That's awesome. And then it makes a file. It saves it for you. Awesome.
And it'll
Okay, cool.
email it to you or somehow get it on your computer.
I stand corrected. Let's see, Helen, Jerry, you got any?
I'm gonna have to go very soon, so.
Well, yeah, you know what our focus is, but I'd also be interested anytime you guys are doing something out in public, like a banner drop or a car caravan, let us know and we'll put the boat out there where everybody can see us as well, and just provide solidarity from the water if you're doing something on shore. Like Red
Awesome.
Hill, Po'akaloa, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, outstanding. You know, I know some folks said they got to go, so I'm not going to go any further with announcements or anything. Let's just continue the conversation by email for now.
What was that?
No,
You're breaking up, Pete.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Any closing words, thoughts? I was just say any closing words, thoughts.
Well, we've recorded this, and we should have asked you first, but anyway, we recorded it, and we'll send the recording to everyone. And if you want to edit it and eliminate whatever you said, you're welcome to do it. But I think it's been a great opportunity for us. I look forward to seeing everybody in September.
Yeah, this was a great start. Yeah, good meeting you.
Great being with you all.
Yeah, we don't say goodbye. We say a hui ho. We'll see. We'll hope we cross paths soon, folks.
Aloha nui.
Malama pono.
Okay.
Okay, you guys, everyone take care now. Aloha.
Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha nui.